Hi, I'm James Jenkins, and this is
What's Your Story, Vancouver?
First off, thanks for joining us today. Today we're at Kelly&Kelly Creative with Lauren Bercovitch. She is head of production and operations here at the studio. Lauren, thanks for having us here at this fine studio.
Thank you for coming by.
Can you tell us what you fine folks do here at Kelly&Kelly Creative?
Yeah, we are a creative studio and we specialize in video production and audio production, mainly making original work. So in audio, we make original shows, podcasts, radio shows for the CBC, some American networks, and then in video, we also, we do original content and shooting a pilot soon, and we make original works, and then we also do stuff for brands as well, so client work.
Who was all involved? Can you introduce us to the team?
Sure, we have Kelly&Kelly, so we have Pat Kelly and Chris Kelly, who are actually not brothers. So they are kind of two founders, creative directors, and they have had a working relationship for a long time. They started the CBC Radio 1 show called This Is That with their fellow collaborator, Peter Oldtreen. And they have just continued making content together for like the last 10 years. And Kelly&Kelly came into existence, and from them and with me, we have expanded, and now we have other producers like Dave Shumka, who's working with us on a podcast, and Michael Grand, and we kind of crew up and bring on people as projects or as they're needed. But that's the small but mighty team of Kelly&Kelly.
That's great. As Gary Vaynerchuk would say, can you give us your origin story, a little bit of background on who you are?
I'm Canadian. I was born in Toronto, but I grew up in San Francisco, so I feel like I have that Canadian sensibility with a little like American gung-ho in me. And I went to University of Nova Scotia, and then I came out here, and I actually started my career working at Adbusters magazine, which is a long-time activist magazine, started in 1989 out of a basement in Vancouver. And while I was there, we happened to put the idea of Occupy Wall Street out in the world, which was...
I remember that.
Felt like not so crazy at the time. We just thought it was like another Adbusters thing we were doing, like any other idea, like Buy Nothing Day or stuff like that. And it turned out to become a worldwide revolution, which was totally insane and fascinating and a wild ride. And sometimes I feel like I peaked with my career at age 25. So I feel like once you start a worldwide revolution, where is there to go from there? But I think that the beautiful thing about Occupy Wall Street that I took from it was the power just of an idea to capture the world's imagination and to do something with it. I mean, all we did was put an idea out in the world with the magazine. We didn't organize anyone to go to New York. We didn't do anything. People took the idea and ran with it, and that really... You
had the attention, I guess, and then people...
We did. I mean, we had a magazine that had been going for many years, so like we had a platform and a network of people that we put it out to, but we didn't actually organize anything. All we did was put like a spread in the magazine saying this idea and sent out a newsletter to our subscriber base. But the fact that it spurred people actually to take action is like still fascinating to me, that an idea could resonate with people enough to make them do something. So I took that from that experience, and then I moved into television and film production because I just loved that medium of storytelling. Print was great, but it wasn't where my heart kind of lies. So I ended up getting into unscripted television, doing kind of docu-series stuff, a cooking show, all those kind of things that have been filmed around Vancouver in the last kind of 10 years. And then from there, I got into scripted television because I love watching scripted television. And I did some not so great shows and some great shows. And then I moved into more documentary film and doing independent stuff, and have produced a few docs, and then started working at Kelly&Kelly and running Kelly&Kelly with I should also mention that one of the Kellys is my husband.
Well, how do you balance work life?
Well, the funny thing is Chris and I never planned to work together. He had been working at CBC for over 10 years. He'd always been in journalism, music journalism, comedy, production, and I had always been in production for print and television and film, but it was never our plan to work together. But then we had a small human a couple of years ago, and it suddenly just made so much sense to work together on projects and for me to be producing the projects that he was doing. And once after I produced the first season of the This Is That videos, he was like, I never want to work on a project without you again. So
how do you all come up with ideas, or like what's your inspiration for different projects, and can you take us through the process?
Yeah, it's I think that for Kelly and Kelly, we've had a lot of success building over time this particular brand of comedy and satire, which has kind of started with our CBC show This Is That, and kind of gone into the videos and now into other projects where it's just super smart, clever satire. Like, it's less kind of like 10 jokes a page kind of writing, and more like it's so funny because it feels so real, but then we kind of skew it slightly, and you're like, no way this can be real, like this is impossible. And the process isn't to trick people, it's just to kind of make it feel so real. And sometimes our stories do end up becoming real, which is totally insane. But yeah, the creative process, it depends what we're doing. If it's we're shooting a pilot soon, and we actually had a development room, and we brought in people like Amy and some other funny writers that we know, and yeah, we sat around a table for 2 days and we talked about what we wanted this show to be, what we didn't want it to be, what kind of show we want to watch, building on other projects we've done and having it have the same sensibilities. And then we started the writing process where we came up with tons of ideas, and then we narrowed it down to 10 ideas, and then from there narrowed it down to 5, and then went to script on those 5 ideas. So that's how we're doing this particular project. But other things, like this true crime podcast we're doing, was a company approached us and just wanted a great idea, and that was one that we had in our back pocket. Trying to think of, another one is like another podcast we did called Dexter Guff is Smarter Than You, was loosely based off of a video that we made. So it's we never know where necessarily the ideas are going to come, but I feel very passionately about this thing, which is if you just keep putting out great stuff that you are super proud of, something will come of it. So we've done that with our This Is That videos. Like, they're just like weird videos.
I was going to ask you that. Like, you got obviously the attention of the CBC with This Is That. This Is That. How do you get the attention of somebody like the CBC?
Well, I mean, we had a relationship with them for the last 10 years almost. So that, I mean, and that the development of the radio show happened, almost 10 years ago. And I can't speak too much to how that evolved because I feel like it was so long ago and I was not working on it. But I feel like what the This Is That videos have allowed us is these kind of like nuggets of proof of concept.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're able to like test out a funny idea, and then certain ideas have been really big, whether it's our thought leader video or social media family or ball of soccer or water smuggler. And we never know, but someone sees this video and is like, that is hilarious. Or like, I want that, but in a podcast form. Or I think that should be turned into a whole feature. And I just feel like, I can't explain that enough. Like, I have no idea what will come out of these videos. Like, we never know. We're not, like, the video, I'm like, oh, this is the best. I'm sorry. This is the best one. Like, this one's gonna go big. It's often not that one that goes big. But it could be this other one that somehow resonates with people.
It strikes a chord with somebody.
It strikes a chord.
Most people, I guess. Like,
but also, and then someone sees it and sees something in it that maybe I didn't even initially see, and they're like, this would be great as a something, and then it leads to something. So
there's one that really you can relate to is the one he drives from Calgary to Vancouver to work at a coffee shop.
Yeah, Commuter. I'm actually
Commuter.
in that one.
Yeah.
I'm the wife and my child is the child.
It's very exaggerated, but people can relate to that kind of thing.
Totally.
In Canada.
It is.
East Coast and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, it's absurd, but it's so absurd because he drives from Calgary to Vancouver to work at a coffee shop. You know, and that's a really good example of one that it's like, it's not in your face comedic.
Yeah, it's very dry, I guess.
Yeah, it's very deadpan. Like, it's very like, but there's a realness to the fact that, and there's layers, there's complexity. It's like commentary on it being hard to find jobs and how expensive Vancouver is.
Yeah, it can be very political. But just,
but also very hilarious because it's outrageous.
All right. Can you take us maybe through a little process of concept to shooting? Like, how long does it take to shoot and come up with it and write it?
I mean, the process is pretty normal to any kind of production, if anyone's in production, but it's different in the sense that we are doing scripted shorts with a super tiny team. Like, most scripted productions are like massive undertakings. You know, you've got like 100 people on set, you've got unions, you've got union actors, you've got trucks, you've got lighting, like you've got like, they're just very, very big productions, and they're much bigger budgets compared to like a docuseries show or something like that. And we really are able to pull off what we do because we have a super small team, and we work with some brilliant cinematographers that are like family to us. And it's like, we'll have like 5 people on set. We've got like 2 camera people, a sound person, us, and like that's it. Like, it's a really, really small, tight-knit team doing scripted, but kind of more with like a doc crew size. And I think that most of our scripted work is meant to look in a documentary style, so it feels right for that. But I think that it's kind of blending these worlds where it's like, it's scripted, but it's also filmed in a documentary style.
Like locations, like some of the locations are pretty cool too. Like the one, the professional email writer.
Yeah.
Like, that was a beautiful home that you guys shot in.
It's an Arthur Erickson original home, and it's on Burnaby Lake, and it's called the Baldwin House. And Burnaby Film was really generous in giving that to us for a super reduced rate. Maybe I shouldn't say that on camera because other people are going to ask them.
Oh, we can cut that in.
For a super reduced rate. But it was really, it's super beautiful, and they let people film there. But when we told them like the size of our production and what we're doing and how it's so short for the web and all this stuff, they were just super accommodating. And when they realized our footprint was so small, they made it accessible to us, which is great financially. But they had like 3 other shows, like massive shows coming in to shoot there, like the days after us. Like it's like a very cool spot, and it brought so much added value to that video. We were actually, years ago, Chris and I were walking around that lake, and he saw that, and he was like, I'm going to shoot something there one day.
No way.
Yeah. And then when we wrote this script specifically to shoot there, I was like, I'm going to get that location for you. And we did, and it worked out really well.
Very determined. Well, speaking about the studio, can you give us maybe a little verbal tour? This is a fully operational studio, and it's open to the public somewhat. What should people know if they have an idea or a project they want to pitch you?
Yeah, this is the studio. We've put a ton in as far as love and care into building specifically the podcast studio. We are actually hosting our first women's podcasting workshop tomorrow. And we have an amazing cohort of women that are really interested in making their own podcast. And we have wanted to support female voices in the podcasting space for a while now. And this is the way we're going to do it as of right now. But the office is, the studio isn't available for rent as of yet, just because yeah, we haven't worked out that system.
Okay.
But we're super open and into supporting people's projects as far as if people want to pitch us things or if they're looking for advice or collaboration. We're open right now to collaborating with people.
That's great. How can people start their own podcast?
It's so easy to start a podcast. No, it's actually not that easy. I'm over-exaggerating that. But it's a little easier than starting their own feature film or anything that requires a video camera. But there's so many ways. I mean, you just have to get a recorder. You don't even need a podcast studio like we have. I mean, there's podcast studios available at the library for free. You just have to book them. There's tons of editing software online for free. Like it's super accessible. And really it just takes a great idea and doing it. It's really low entry, low barrier. I think for most people, it's just another issue of time. It's like, do they have time to do this? But it's really worthwhile, and I love podcasts. I feel like it's the most intimate medium that we have. I mean, just like going for a walk and listening to someone talk to you in your ear is super emotional and an incredible way for storytelling or to have a connection with someone. So it's definitely a platform that I think more people should check out if they are storytellers. Like, we're having this workshop tomorrow, and quite a few people are like doc filmmakers and in the film industry in general. And it's like, maybe every project isn't meant to be a film. Maybe a project is supposed to be a podcast.
Yeah.
I think that people are more open to that now, that like some projects might lend themselves to that. And also maybe not everything needs to be on a screen. Maybe more kids content needs to be a podcast. Like, I think it's
opens up the imagination.
Yeah.
And people have more time to listen than to watch almost, it seems like.
Yeah, for commutes, for this. Like, I think it's kind of been overlooked as old. Like, oh, that's radio, like boring. But it's like podcasts are just on-demand radio. Like, it's there's so much potential there to connect with people and to tell stories that I think it's something people should check out and start their own podcast.
Exactly. You have time to go for coffee with somebody, you have time to record a podcast.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think another thing that we're kind of trying to tell the people in our workshop tomorrow too is it can be really intimidating and be like, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to put a podcast out every week? Like, God, that sounds exhausting already. Like, I don't have time for that. But maybe it doesn't have to be a never-ending podcast. Maybe there's something like you have a passion about pregnancy or something that's like about.
Well, Seth Godin has a podcast, and it only ran for so long.
Yeah,
but it's there forever.
Exactly, like a limited run series that maybe is like 10 episodes or 4 episodes. You're like, I'm really into bike maintenance or something, and you're like, this is my podcast just on like the 5 things you need to know about bike maintenance, and it's 5 episodes, and it's like just something you make that's evergreen that someone can listen to at any time. Like, it doesn't always have to be something that you have to maintain forever. So I think that's an interesting option for people as well.
Where do you see the future of podcasting?
I'm no podcast expert like Chris Kelly and Pat Kelly, but I mean, I think that people are seeing the potential of podcasts there. I mean, we're seeing a lot of television shows coming from podcasts right now. It's another, like, again, proof of concept where someone's like, this fiction scripted series podcast was huge, and now we can just take that audience and make it into a TV show. So there's one right now called Startup, starring Zach Braff, which is based on a podcast.
Are these some of the ones that you listen to frequently? I was going to ask you that, actually. What are some of your like go-tos daily?
So many podcasts I can't keep track, but yeah, I listen to Two Dope Queens, Still Processing. There's a great CBC one called Alone that I just finished. There's some great CBC ones in general right now, like On Drugs is a really good one. Trying to think. I mean, then I've always loved, like, I still love the classics, like This American Life, Radiolab. Like, if some people haven't listened to Radiolab, it's like, listen to it. It's so good. It makes science seem like the most interesting topic literally ever talked about. And still some This American Life episodes I still reference, like their summer camp one. They're like, I still talk about them daily. If you haven't heard Serial, it's like, yeah, listen to Serial. It's amazing. That first season is like what made podcasting a thing now.
Really?
Like, yeah, it was the first audio to ever go viral, basically. Okay. So it's definitely worth a listen. And I'm also starting to listen to one called The Habitat right now from Gimlet, which is like this really cool science experiment where, you know, we're eventually going to get to Mars, but the air is poisonous on Mars, so that people are going to have to live in a dome. So right now they did an experiment with like, I think it's 6, but I'm not sure, like 6 scientists in Hawaii, and they are forcing them to live in a dome for a year. Mm-hmm. Kind of like Biodome, the movie Biodome. But that's a super fascinating one. Yeah, there's just like so many. There's so many comedy podcasts. Dave Shumka's podcast, Stop Podcasting Yourself, is so funny.
You probably just start with the top 5 podcasts.
Yeah, and just whatever you're interested in. Like whatever if you're in the mood for like a murder mystery or you're in the mood for comedy. I just listened to one with a comedian named Pete Holmes, and it's about it's a guy named Mark Duplass, who's a filmmaker, talking about how he's a creator and how his life balance, and he's like prolific to me. He's like, his shorts and features premiered at Sundance, and he makes amazing things with his brother. And I was saying his podcast episode on Keep It Weird with Pete Holmes was not life-changing, it was like life-affirming. I was like, oh my God, he only works from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. every day. That's how I work. Like, it was like, I felt like I was sitting there with my hero, Mark Duplass, like getting to hear him like reveal the secrets of life. It's really cool.
We met at a funding seminar. Mm-hmm. Is there any tips for anybody out there, like for somebody that's trying to get their projects funded, or any grants that you can recommend, or any contests, that kind of thing? Like,
yeah, I would definitely say that Tell Story Hive is, I'm a really big fan. I've done it twice. Mm-hmm. I really do think that it's an incredible program. The fact that their whole mandate is to support filmmakers, not just projects. Like, they want to build filmmakers and help build their careers. Like I said on the panel, I know it's really discouraging to people when you have to like make a teaser and you have to ask people to vote, and that can just be really, really tough. Mm-hmm. But I think on the other hand of that is that we live in Canada and we get these amazing opportunities to make our own stuff. Mm-hmm. So like the fact that there are even these programs that will give you $10,000 if you win, not everyone gets to win, but is such a privilege. And I think that's just part of it, is that you have to like put it out there, and build your audience is also a really beneficial part. But I think people should definitely do Story Hive. It was, for me, an incredible experience. It was the first I ever directed. It gave me so much confidence as a director. I now say I'm a director. I direct our projects. I just came back from a shoot down with Google that I produced and directed. Like, it really helped build my confidence. And it helped make a short film that I'd always wanted to make. So just having $10,000 versus nothing is such a huge difference, to be able to like pay your crew or to pay yourself to make it. So I would definitely recommend Story Hive. And
it gets your ass in gear and makes you make something, and then you have something to show somebody. Yeah,
it's exactly. Like they let you know fast, you do it fast, and it's over. It's not this like, I would get discouraged too. I'd be like, oh, I got to apply for this thing, and it takes like, they're not going to let me know for 6 months. You're like, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing 6 months from now.
So do you recommend getting someone that's good at that kind of thing? Getting filling out paperwork and doing all the
I mean, I'd say for Story Hive, it's like you don't need to be good at that stuff. Like, it's not a big grant application by any means. It's like, it does help if you're like, I know how to hold a camera and shoot something and edit it myself, because having to ask people to do that stuff for you can be kind of brutal. But yeah, like, I know how to shoot, I know how to edit, I know how to do all that stuff. Like, it's not a super heavy duty application. I've done other ones that are much harder, like a Bell Media grant or a Telefilm grant, and that stuff is harder. But I would say to people to just like keep checking back into those programs and see if you qualify for something. I feel like at that panel, I was really impressed that Bell Media was like, oh, we've changed all our programs. I'm like, yeah, your programs, like, they used to be obsessed with like second screen content, but like apps and games for TV shows. You're like,
oh really?
Who is playing an app, like a corner gas game? Because like I feel like it was trying to be more tech savvy.
Yeah, that stuff never flew.
It never flew. Yeah, exactly. It never really took off. Like now I was trying to be like, you know, a complimentary podcast to a TV show is something that people are actually listening to. Like that makes a lot of sense. But
well, with The Walking Dead, they had the show. Well,
yeah,
it could have been a podcast. Yeah,
and they did. And there's I think they do have or Game of Thrones has a podcast too that's like super successful. So people love that, and there's tons of fan podcasts for shows and. But I was going to say, is the Bell Fund, like I think they're changing those programs because the way people are consuming media is changing as well. So I'm happy to see that they're trying to keep up with that. And someone might think like they might thought they maybe didn't qualify before, but maybe now they do. And these programs, like the funding programs, used to always have these triggers too that were kind of tough. Like you had to have theatrical distribution or things that when you're a small indie creator, you're like, I don't have that, or it's self-funded, or I don't have distribution. But they're getting really good at not needing those things as much now, because it's like even big films might not have theatrical distribution. Like it might just be a Netflix deal. So it's good to check back in and see if those programs have changed. But for kind of more first-time filmmakers and stuff like that, there's definitely TELUS is a good place to start, and Creative BC is also a good place to start, and then kind of work your way up. And once you kind of get into some of those streams, there's more opportunities. Like once you're in the Telefilm family, there's like more. And once you're in the TELUS family, there's more. Like it's definitely worthwhile to apply to things.
What are some of the back end stuff that you do or you can do to increase views or listeners for your projects?
Well, I once sat on a panel with a brilliant filmmaker named Andrew Nisker, and a documentary filmmaker out of Toronto, and he said this was like 12 years ago, and he said, making the thing, he was talking about documentary films, but literally it could be anything, making the thing is the easy part. It's getting it out there that's really hard, and making it is fucking hard. So like getting it out there is so hard, and we feel that still to this day. Like even with This Sounds Serious, our latest podcast, we're like, how do we get it out there? How do we get it out there? And I honestly do not have any any real tips.
You just become a practitioner and do it, I guess.
Yeah, I think even if you've got a great network, even if you've hired a PR company, it's like nothing beats your hustle. It's like even if you have great people in place, they still need things from you. They still need assets. They still need behind the scenes photos. They still need this, like things in your voice. Like nothing. I don't think anything replaces you're just like pounding the pavement and making some effort. Like for This Sounds Serious, we postered Vancouver for a podcast. Like it makes no sense.
I've seen them.
But we were like, we were putting so much effort in. We were like, we just want to like feel like we are like shouting it from the mountaintops.
Well, it works because didn't it go up to like top?
Yeah, it's like...
Which one? What's the number?
Yeah, it's number 4. It hit number 4 in iTunes US. It's doing super well. Like we're so proud of it. But it's funny, the top cities are all like London, LA, San Francisco. Like Vancouver's not even on the top city. I'm like, wait, we didn't poster in those cities. But I think it is hard to get things out there. And something we're actually really proud of with the This Is That videos is we've never paid to promote them. Like they're all organic views. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's pretty phenomenal that they have had that. It's our kind of content. Those videos are things that people want to share. So that helps.
Well, a little plug for our show is what you just mentioned. Like it's top 5 or 4 in all these cities around the world, but then Vancouver doesn't really know about it. That's what we're trying to do. This show is we're trying to like, by the way, these people are doing great things in the city and you don't know about them. We're trying to promote other people that are like yourself, right?
Yeah,
and then,
doing amazing things.
And coming up pretty soon is a YouTuber, well, they have a company similar to yours, but they're on YouTube and they do videos like combos with my 2-year-old kind of thing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And big all over the world, and they got millions and millions of views, and no one in Vancouver really knows who they are.
Yeah, I mean, even in this neighborhood alone, like we were just walking by one of these, like one of the graphics places, and it was like, we did the graphics for Blade Runner. I was like, oh, you did? Yeah. Like, I would never have known that if a sign hadn't been put on their door that they could do it. Like, there's so many inspiring people in Vancouver doing incredible things. Like,
why is it that Vancouver doesn't know about it, or the general public, or is it just we don't boast? As like, I don't know, what is it? That's
true. I mean, even at Adbusters, people were like, Adbusters is from Vancouver? I'm like, yes, Occupy Wall Street was started in Vancouver. Yeah. Like,
Greenpeace, wasn't that started?
Started in Vancouver. Like, these are massive, massive things that Vancouver should be super proud of, that they're like homegrown. I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know why. I think that maybe just too polite, too Canadian. Like, the American in me is like, if it was with America, if Vancouver was American, people would be like bragging all the time about what they were doing.
100%.
So yeah, maybe there is a little bit of that kind of like, or the West Coast relaxed, or like not wanting to boast. But I think the alternative to that would be to like champion one another, which is what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you so much for having us and hosting us here at this beautiful studio.
Our very blue studio. No, thanks for coming.
Thanks for being on the show.
And asking such thoughtful questions.
Thanks everyone for watching. Links will be in the description below. If you want to see the full interview, it's up here. And please like, share, and subscribe right over there.
What's your story, Vancouver? Our city, our stories.